sometimes the things that happen around us don't really make much logical sense. You might have many old people in their 90s praying long hours in the middle of the night when everyone else is asleep. But at the same time, you have many young people in their prime, in their strength, in their health, just gaming all day, being lazy, not praying at all to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sometimes you might have many poor people with nothing to their name, but as soon as they have something, they give, and you find them the most selfless and the most generous of all people. But on the other hand, you might have rich people who make tens of thousands of pounds and dollars a month in profit, yet they struggle to let go of even just a fraction of their wealth to help those in need. Sometimes you might have people in war zones who are basically surrounded by fear. They have no food, they have no water, but you always see them just saying Alhamdulillah, and they have a smile that emanates from deep within their hearts. But on the other hand, you might have people who are in the West, riddled with mental health problems, riddled with anxieties and depression, and all they do is complain when the tiniest bit of discomfort comes their way, and subsequently they are exposed to the highest rates of suicide in the world, subhanallah. Sometimes you might have the most knowledgeable of people, the community leaders who know right from wrong, who are very Islamically grounded, committing some of the most major sins. But then you also have people who are the least knowledgeable because they've not had access to knowledge perhaps, and you find them having the purest of actions and the purest of character. You see, at first glance, these things seem like a contradiction. It does seem contradictory. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. But when we understand the root cause of these contradictions, it suddenly becomes clear. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he said, "Ala wa inna fil jasadi mudagha. إذا صلحت صلح الجسد كله وإذا فسدت فسد الجسد كله ألا وهي القلب." Verily in the body is a piece of flesh, which if this piece of flesh is sound, then the entire body is sound. And if it is corrupt, then this entire body is corrupt. What is this lump of flesh? The Prophet ﷺ said that it is the heart. The spiritual heart is literally the root cause of all of these things that once we thought were a contradiction, but now we know that it's actually just not a contradiction, which is why focusing on everything to do with the matters of the heart is so incredibly important, because we do not want to be of those people who Allah has given and we act in the wrong way. So what exactly is the heart? The heart is like a vessel, and you can either fill it with goodness or you can either fill it with badness. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he said, تُعْرَضُ الْفِتَنُ عَلَى الْقُلُوبِ. Temptations will be presented to the heart again and again and again and again. You can't avoid it. But then one of two things happens. If the heart accepts this temptation, a black spot will be placed onto it. And if the heart rejects this temptation, a white spot will be put onto it. And over time, this results in two types of hearts, as the Prophet ﷺ, he said. The first of the two is that the heart will become white like stone, and it will not be harmed by any fitna or any temptation moving forward. And the second type of heart is a black and hard heart that no longer recognizes right from wrong, and it no longer understands good from bad, and it does the bad without realizing what it's doing is bad, and even worse, when it does bad, it thinks it's doing good. This is what temptations do to the heart. But what do these temptations look like? Because that's a general kind of statement. How do they reach the heart in the first place? All the faculties that Allah has given you act like a funnel into your heart. You know the drain pipes, when it rains, it collects the rain and then it gathers it and it pushes it into the gutter essentially. Everything we do with our faculties, everything we look at with our eyes, everything we say with our mouths, everything we do with our limbs, everything we think with our minds, they all act like drain pipes that funnel into your heart. And they either add black spots onto it or they add white spots onto it too. And since we are humans, and we all know this, there's no doubts that we will make mistakes. And there's no doubts that sometimes our hearts will accept temptations, which will lead to some sort of blackness in there. Now, what do these temptations look like? Sometimes, for example, you know you need to lower your gaze, but you don't lower your gaze. Sometimes you might shout back at your parents. Sometimes you might eat something you shouldn't eat. Sometimes you might commit certain sins or waste too much time. The point is that every single one of our hearts are dirty to some degree, and we have to clean them. Because otherwise, if it's too dirty, it becomes black, and hard mail will protect us from that. And I want you to think about it for a second. When we use things over and over and over again, they get dirty, correct? Let's say you go to the shop and you buy a brand new t-shirt, and I'm going to say it's white so you guys can really visualize. Imagine you wear the same white t-shirt every single day for weeks on end. What's going to happen to this white t-shirt? Of course it's going to smell, but it's also going to start going yellow as well, right? Because of the sweat that you're releasing, and it's mixing with your body juices, sorry to be graphic, but it's going to get very, very dirty, correct? If you drive a car, you buy a brand new car, it smells amazing. It's completely dust free. If you drive it day after day, week after week, month after month, what's going to happen eventually? It's going to gather dirt from the outside, from the inside, and you're going to have to clean it. You're going to have to take it to the car wash. The heart is the exact same. As we live our lives again and again, day after day, it begins to get dirtier and dirtier and dirtier, which is actually pretty problematic. Very problematic, actually. And the way to emphasize this, I'm going to give you just like a scenario. Imagine that you only spend time in dirty places. Imagine your house is dirty and your workplace is dirty. Wherever you go is dirty. And you only ever eat dirty food. And you only ever wear dirty clothes. And you only ever indulge in dirty actions. Everything you do is dirty. If you're constantly surrounded by dirt, what's eventually going to happen? You're probably going to catch a disease, correct? Likewise, if your heart is constantly surrounded by dirt and there's nothing that you do to clean it, it becomes a breeding ground for diseases to grow within it. But sadly, most people, and I guarantee if you go to most Muslims that you know and you tell them, do you know of what a disease of the heart is? They'll say, I don't know. Most people don't know that actually hearts can have diseases. And they don't even know how to clean it, never mind know what the disease is, which is actually a big calamity. Because if you were to catch a disease of the body, let's say cancer, you know you have to go to the doctor. And if you can't treat it, you'll feel its pain right now when you're alive in this life. But when the body dies, the pain of cancer stops. If, however, you catch a disease of the heart and you leave it untreated, it's pretty much invisible. You can't feel anything. There's no pain in this life. But only when the body dies, that's where the pain begins. And for many people, that pain lasts forever. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Quran, إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. Only those who come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the Day of Judgment with a pure heart, they are the ones that will be saved. In other words, no amount of knowledge that you gain, no amount of charity that you give, no amount of actions that you do which are good deeds will mean anything if your heart is not pure. With a pure heart, your dunya and akhirah is rectified. And without it, your dunya and akhirah is destroyed. Which is why this program that you've just started right now is the most important program that you can ever study and you can ever apply until the end of your life. Because from it, you're able to diagnose your heart, and then you're able to begin the process of purification using the Quran and the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ. And if you're able to do this again and again and again, over time, this will fix not just your relationship with Allah, but also fix your relationship with the people, and also fix your relationship with yourself, and ultimately it will directly fix your akhirah forever, where it all matters.